How's it going, Theo? Big fan. My name's Malik. Come from Sacramento, California, and I want to ask you a question for slash some advice from you. One thing I've been struggling with a lot of my adult life is anger issues. I think it stems from not being super close to my father growing up. Plus, I used to get bullied when I was a kid. I was a late bloomer. I hit puberty. Long story short, now I'm just some 6'2", 215-pound ripped up black dude who's pissed as fuck all the time. It sucks. You would have seen like when shit happens to you in your podcast that you things may get to you, but you don't react violently. And I want to ask, what do you do to not get so fucking worked up? When things happen in your life. Oh yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time, Theo.
I appreciate you calling in, man. This is, it's tough how do you get rid of that childhood anger as you become an adult? If you had issues with your dad, you probably were used to dealing with things on your own. If it sounds like you guys weren't close. So now you are as an adult, probably still have some childhood stuff you're trying to deal with. But at least now you're not dealing with it on your own. You're talking about it. It's obvious you don't want to be, you don't want to be the angry black guy. Not to say that, but that's the real of it. You don't want to be that. And you don't want to be just an angry guy, And that's real, man. It's neat to hear that the angry black guy doesn't want to be the angry black guy. That's what's interesting, Because usually you see the angry black guy, you're like, oh, that guy loves being that guy. But here he is, and he doesn't. And he doesn't love being that guy. So it's neat to hear this from your perspective, man. I got a friend who's a flasher, bro. I'm going to say that. And it's a disease. It's an illness that he has. And to hear it from his perspective is crazy. Because the last thing he wants to be is a flasher. Somebody that's just showing junk. Just SJing around town. He doesn't want that. He wants to do other stuff. He actually wants to do construction, contractor work. He wants to be a contractor, a licensed contractor. But he's busy. He's caught up in the throes of this flashing because he's out there showing. And it's neat to hear this from your perspective, man. You don't want to be that guy. So if I had to give you some honest advice, man, I would say start doing some white people shit, bruh. Get one of those bedside things that make the sound ambient noise. White noise, they call it. That's about the whitest thing you could do. Get a machine that makes white noise. I think that kind of shit could help you tone it down. I pretty much mostly do white people shit these days. I used to do a lot of, multicultural activities in the day. We used to pop off a little bit and get a little bit Latino and even, I'd get Russian sometimes with some of these ladies. But, now these days I'm keeping things Caucasian. I'll turn up a little bit sometimes if there's if it's a playoff game. So, I do appreciate you calling. It sounds like you that strong, bruh. You strong enough to get through this. Take a week off the gym and work out on what's inside, man. Just start working out on it. The first day you might not feel it, but you'll get there. You'll get there, man. Because that's the manliest thing. That's the heaviest weights, dude. Is whatever's weighing on our soul, bruh. I swear. And I know I need to work hard on it myself. Work with a battered wives club or a victims of violence. That might show you the end product of, if you do feel like you have anger and violence issues at times, it could show you the end product of that and help you ward against, have a stop in your head and in your mind. You'll have an end idea of what the effects of that behavior look like. But damn, dog, if there's one thing I'm afraid of, dude, it's snakes. If there's another thing, it's hardy brothers, dude, that are angry. I'm saying this. Anybody can get in there and lift the weights. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is lift that bullshit that's off your brain. Get in there and work out that muscle. Because that's the irony of it is sometimes we get ourselves physically so in tune, but all we really want is to get that weight off of our chest or off of our shoulder. You said you might have been bullied growing up or whatever. You know, I got attacked by animals on my birthday, man. I don't know if that's bullied, but it's wild, you know. And I don't want to see you out there headbutting children like that man that did me, you know. Maybe he was you. Maybe he had anger issues and he never dealt with them. And then there he is, you know, 15 years later, headbutting school children for vodka. You know, I'm not saying that could be you, but, you know, if you don't get into the gym, that brain gym, that soul gym, and start to figure out what it is, things can get squirrely. This G-Pig's, wow, get off that laptop. Damn, he's so wild. Boy, come on, dude. He trying to use a Photoshop, man. He trying to use Photoshop. I'm so tired. Look at that. Look at them holes in my face. That's my eyes. All right, we got this call from Franklin, North Carolina.
Hey, bruh. My girl has 3 really long, thick, bristly hairs growing out of her navel. I plucked one while she was sleeping. The root was really bulbous and girthy and smelled like bone broth. Should I love her or leave her?
Wow, man. Yeah, that's the hairy navel, dude. I haven't dealt with that. I've definitely dated a girl with a very small head for a while. And even, it was almost just like her neck had gotten real fancy at the top and had a mouth on it and stuff. And I remember her head just felt like an adventurous kind of melon. It was about a 3/4 head, maybe, of a regular head. And that made me nervous, dude. I dated a girl her mouth smelled like meat around her mouth. Smelled like different meat. Like she was just hiding carpaccio under her skin or something around her mouth. Or putting some kind of meats or something on her mouth at night. And I know she wasn't. I mean, that's crazy. She didn't even eat beef jerky or do any of those, nothing like that. But she had this very meat, this kind of barbecue-ish kind of feeling and scent around her lips. That made me nervous. I hooked up with this girl one time in South Carolina or North Carolina her breasts kind of felt like shit diapers a little bit. Like a baby, like if a baby has like a poop diaper, you can mold the diaper and it'll stay that way. And her breasts were like that. You could shape them and they would stay in whatever shape you kind of put them in. So that was very baffling. But I never said a word, I never said a word, dude, because I've had things that I'm sure, and do have things that I'm sure women don't like about me. I've had hairy back, had hairy buttocks. Sometimes I get it kind of tended to. They got a Persian lady over here who really hates hair, and she'll go at it for you for about $50 and really attack it. But I used to be nervous, self-conscious that I had hair kind of on my buttocks and back. And I even remember I would walk out of the room backwards. Like if I were leaving a bedroom, if I'd been making love with a lady, and I'm walking out of the room, I would walk backwards like I'm that dude in Silence of the Lambs, but I would like walk backwards like I was Michael Jackson, just like, I gotta go to the bathroom, just walk out of the room like that, dude. Because I was just self-conscious about that. I had a fever one time really bad and made love to a woman, and I know to this day that she questions probably the heat that was coming out of my body. It was beyond normal. It was like 103-degree fever I was fucking at, and that's very intense probably. So I don't know what she thought. Maybe that I had some type of a rabies, or that I was just angry, just so angry, to be coming in that hot physically. So I think you got to think about that, man. Like, how many hairs and weird body things do you have, not to scold you, but to let you know that, dude, you probably have countless deficiencies. Countless, man. We all do. So you can't really hold your lady to that crazy regard, I don't think, you know? I mean, maybe celebrate it. Get her a barrette. You know, get her a barrette up and just pop a beautiful barrette, like a nice little church brooch for your hair, and put it on those hairs, you know, or gel them down, you know. Make a game about it, you know. Floss your teeth with them, dude. Celebrate it. Maybe instead of, you know, trying to sneak them out of her body while she's resting. And how hard does she even sleep if you're able to pull a hair out of her body? I'd worry about you know, some of her sleep patterns and about some of her hair patterns, and and just love her, man. That's what I say, dude. Because here's the thing: if you love her for everything, bruh. If she has one leg or one lip or one, you know, or only one fucking hat or anything, dude, love her. You know, if you're gonna love her, love her. That's what I say. If you say you're gonna love somebody, then love them. Otherwise, don't bullshit them up top, man. But if you want to mail that hair in, dude, email me and I'll show the hair to people. Just to prove that you're out there doing that, sneaking hairs out of people's body in the middle of the night, bruh. Damn, dog. That's some Boo Radley shit right there, bruh. But I do appreciate you checking in. And I say just embrace her, man. You know, show her some bad hair you have. And y'all just be fucking hair bears, dog. You know? Hair bear up. From Canada, this is Monica.
Oh, hey, Theo. This is Monica. I'm calling from Vancouver, Canada. And I'm just wanting to get your male perspective on an issue I'm having. So I'm about 27. I've been dealing with depression and social anxiety probably for the last 10 years or so. And last year was especially pretty rough. Probably the last 6 or 8 months have been really sad and just feeling lonely and just like empty. And on top of that, I gained a bunch of weight. So you just feel so unattractive and you just want to hide away from everybody. But at this point, I've come to the realization that being alone at this point isn't really good for my psyche. And I know that it's time for me to get out there and pick myself up again and get into the dating world. So I guess I'm just hoping you might have looking for some advice from you to, you know, get some confidence back and get my shit together, hopefully. So any thoughts you have would be greatly appreciated.
Wow. Well, I mean, first, look, Monica, I'll tell you this. You know, I love you. I'll say that right out of the gate, you thick little muffin, you know. If you putting on a pound or two, you could just hug me. I bet it feels good. That's the good thing about if you do put on a little bit of weight, when you hug somebody, you're really giving them more joy. You know, you ever hug a bony person? It's like holding on to a pillowcase full of deer antlers, you know? But you hug a real meat dog, you know, or a meaty or stronger or thicker, Rubenesque. That's beautiful, you know? So I want to say, first of all, that I love you, you know, and I feel you. And it sounds like you're putting a lot on your plate, you know? I mean, you want to feel better, and then you don't want to be alone. And I can sympathize with that. Regarding the weight, I mean, you would be surprised how much getting in shape and getting your blood going makes everything else better. It's specifically your mindset. Like you get a little bit of activity, physical activity, your mind is gonna start to get in shape as well. And I would try to approach your weight loss not with I have to lose weight or I'm gonna lose weight, but with the idea or the mindset that I'm gonna live a healthier lifestyle. Then it's not just about the weight. And I find that people who approach it that way, that I'm gonna live a healthier lifestyle, tend to lose weight and actually keep it off, because then they're headed in an overall better direction. And this is going to sound kind of silly, but I promise that this works, right? When you see a food that you want but you shouldn't have, don't say I can't eat that. I would say I don't eat that. That way you are taking ownership. You're taking control as opposed to letting the food take the control, if that makes any sense. You know, I don't eat that. That's way freaking. Then you're like a thug. You're a thug out there. Whereas if you say, I can't eat that, then you are in this kind of. You're being attacked kind of by the food. So I don't eat that. It's a lot more power for you. And I feel like that will just empower you overall. And I think those are some simple things you can do to start moving like a physically healthier direction. And in terms of like social anxiety, I can 100% relate. I mean, I spent honestly about 5 years of my life sleeping in Santa Monica. I was depressed, and I would get uncomfortable being in social circles, and I would lay in my bed and I would just sleep, and I would eat peanut butter and jellies during the daytime, and I would hope for the best, but not act for the best. And I thought that one day I would just wake up, or from some nap, I would just wake up and suddenly the world would be better, or I would feel better. But that never happened. I mean, all I really did was push my problems like 5 years down the road. And there's no magic way to make yourself feel comfortable, like in a social setting. I mean, I think one thing that does help is just trying to make each time you're in a social setting a little bit better than the last time by making more effort. Introduce yourself to people. I think that's the best thing. Just, hey, I'm Theo. Hey, I'm Monica. Because immediately you're taking ownership. You're taking control of the situation. And even if they don't respond well, at least then that's them being antisocial. That's not you being antisocial. And also try to find areas, maybe you could be looking in the wrong circles. Like, dude, I went to nightclubs for years, bruh. And it was a bunch of Persian people in there, usually adult men, or very tan, like men that had been in the gymnasium and looked like their muscles were just trying to climb out of their shirt and leave them because their muscles didn't even like them. Like their muscles just wanted to get divorced from their skeletons and just be done with them, and veins blowing up out of their chest and neck, and then a lot of Persian men wearing cologne, heavy cologne. And I would be there and I would feel like something was wrong with me, but really everybody in the club, or 90% of the people, were miserable. They were just trying to look like they were having a good time. And one of my problems was I was going to clubs. I was looking repeatedly in the same place for social acceptance, and a place that really I never did like. I never did like clubs, man. I like more of like being around a fire. I even scrapbook, bruh. I fucking scrapbook, dude. I'm not saying I'm gonna join some scrapbookers club with a lot of ladies and stuff, but I needed to find other areas to get social in. And once I started doing that, I would just hang out at a comedy club. Those people, it's just a different vibe. There's no great way to do it, but you got to make an effort. And whether that's the next time I go to a party, I'm going to introduce myself to 2 people, or I'm a pet an animal. You could even start off at a petting zoo. You could start off at a petting zoo and get out there. Or meet children. Go to a place where a lot of children are. If you don't have any issues with children, and meet children. Because they're going to be accepting, they'll be cool, and then just use some of those same skills you learn with children, or even with animals, with adults. And also, give yourself permission to be uncomfortable. You don't have to be comfortable. That's another myth. We're not always comfortable, bruh. So give yourself permission to not be comfortable. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. Okay. Instead of oh, fuck, I'm uncomfortable. Oh, God. Oh, I'm so uncomfortable. This shirt, it doesn't feel, these shoes, they don't match this. Otherwise, it's oh, fuck, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know why. Don't pin the tail on your own donkey if you don't know why you're uncomfortable. I used to do that. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. Bah, 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 bah. But I'll say this. I heard a quote once that insecurity is the belief that this is only happening to us. There's so few feelings and so many people that there's a lot of people who are having the same feelings you are. So you gotta you got to voice them. You got to share them. Find somebody else that looks awkward as fuck, and boom, that's your first friend. If you feel awkward, find somebody else that's awkward. They're easy to pick out. And then bam, now y'all have dual awkwardness. Two awkwards. You know what they say, two awkwards make a comfort. So I think that could help. I hope some of that shit helps, you know. Be at the library, even though they have a lot of deviant homeless at the library, and a lot of them are, I had some insane experiences when I first got to LA. A lot of homeless, and they do masturbation too at the library. You know that. And Monica, I just want to say I love you. You know, I hope you feel better. You know, you're probably a good woman. You probably are. And if you care enough about yourself to reach out to other people, that's a great start. So you're already doing way better than I was. Those years I was just lying in my bed, just eating peanut butter and jellies, and caught up in the throes of pornography and just in the darkness. So I'm proud of you there. You got this. Just G up a little. Drink a Red Bull. G up. You know, even something as little as getting yourself a new pair of sneakers or something like that can kind of, it can just excite you. Some small motivation. And don't do it all in one day. You don't have to change today. You just have to progress today.
I'm just going to get straight into it. So I was with this woman, and she was already a little older than me, so it was a little intimidating.
Oh, so you with an older lady, huh? Dang, boy. You got to be careful. I'll say this. I dated an older gal once, or, you know, spent a little bit of time with her, and at a certain age, some women's bodies, it feels like their skin and their skeletons are separate from each other. And so you'll grab on their skin, and it'll feel like it's like a really tight onesie, or really kind of gristly tight onesie that their skeleton is wearing. So that can be a little alarming sometimes with the body type of a senior type of woman. Onward.
Whenever we were kind of getting it, you know.
You guys
we were making out, and she was using like the tongue, man, it was just a sinful amount of tongue just like swirling like in my mouth and shit. Yeah, I'm gonna I hate that. If like they're jousting or something, like they're like, you know, doing like they're like the cheapest dentist, you know, like they're just jabbing around in your mouth with their tongue. You know, it's almost like a little newborn dog just put his tail in your mouth and is just, you know, rattling it around, you know, just being nasty. So let's hear more. And it was just like, just uncomfortable amount of tonguing going on. And I wasn't sure how to like bring that up to her, so I just kind of stopped, and I don't know. We just haven't talked very much lately, and I was just wondering if you have ever been put in like a situation where it's just something uncomfortable, like sexually going on, and how you handled it.
Oh, it's a good question. Something uncomfortable sexually. Well, I'll say this, dude. I went home one time with a black girl, an African-American girl, and she, all of her bedroom was covered in not mirrors, but metal that was kind of reflective, you know, like, but not really good reflective. And she put on like a vampire type of costume, and wanted me to do sex, man, and I left. So that shit made me really uncomfortable. I can certainly, you know, understand the people putting their mouths, the tongue in the mouth. That's nasty at a certain point. Like, what are you doing? Like, we're supposed to be kissing. You're not supposed to be just attacking me inside of my mouth. It makes you feel just violated, dude. It feels like they're just trying to fuck your mouth with their tongue. And here's the thing, though. Who taught them that? Like, that whole chain of people that's doing that shit where they, you know, like, it's almost like they hadn't kissed somebody since they were like 13. You know, it's almost like kissing somebody real fast, you know, where like you guys both got to leave and you just met and you just kiss somebody real fast, you know. It's almost like how a lizard might kiss another lizard if lizards could love each other like adult humans, you know? So I feel you, man. I feel you on that kissing thing. What else? I'm sure I've had some crazy sexual, this one woman liked to, I remember this. She wanted to have things balanced. Like if you were doing doggy style sex, she wanted you to have balanced things on her back. Like, I remember the first time it was like a stack of books, like small books. And then it was, books and then something else on top of them, like maybe like a potpourri dish or something. And she just was into fucking, I don't know why, but she wanted, I guess she just felt more in control if she was able to, you were able to, do sex and fuck this girl, but also she was able to balance a bunch of stuff on her back. So I don't know what the fuck that's called, but that girl had that. But dude, look, man, if a woman kisses like that, tell her. That's what you got to do, bruh. Especially if there's a senior, tell her. That's probably why she's older and still kissing little men, man, and kissing younger fellas. Tell her that she kisses like a damn, just like a salamander, and set her straight, bro. Even if you just do it in a text and you do it kindly, say, hey, I enjoyed meeting you. I've enjoyed spending time with you. One thing that made me uncomfortable was the way you kissed when you would put your tongue in my mouth, and then you would try and beat the fuck out of the inside of my mouth with your tongue. And it just made me feel uncomfortable. But otherwise, I really liked spending time with you. So that's a nice way to kind of let her know that shit needs to stop. Because it does. That needs to stop across the board, dude. Across the board. Also, big bushes. There was some feminists tonight at this comedy show talking about how they grow their bushes out now. Awesome. No real man, I don't think, is going to fucking love that. Maybe up in Canada, actually. So I shouldn't say that, but I do hear you, Chase, man. That's my neck of the woods, brother. Come across 10-4.
I was calling in reference. You asked about if anybody's having trouble about masturbation or stories about bad jobs or something like that. Well, I had this job. I actually really liked it. It was one of my favorite jobs. I was driving school bus for the parish. And
oh, nice, dude. Now, the parish, most states have counties. Louisiana, we have parishes. That's what they call it there. So it's the same thing. Damn, this dude's pretty gangster, bro. If you driving bus, bro, go on.
It was basically awesome. I saw the sunrise every morning, off every weekend. But there was this one aspect where the high school kids, like public school in, South Louisiana, you could kind of paint the picture in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Really, all the kids were great except for this one. And I really kind of liked him and hated him because, he was, a really smart, sharp dude, but he was zingy.
You got zinged by the children, huh? I can relate to that, man. I can relate to school bus activities, that's for sure. Chase, when I was young, bruh, I'll tell you this story. We had a boy on our school bus who his daddy made him a wooden shirt. And I talk about this sometime in my stand-up, but his daddy had made him a wooden shirt, a shirt out of wood. And not even teak or balsam, those are malleable woods. This boy's shirt was made out of plywood. And the daddy was an Elvis impersonator, and the daddy was an Elvis impersonator because, well, first of all, he was an alcoholic, because we only had, maybe few hundred people in our area. We didn't need a fucking Elvis, dude. We need gas money and we need ideas. Those are the top two things we need. Nobody's hiring an Elvis, and fucking half of everybody's uncle looks a little bit like Elvis anyway. So nobody's going to go just get another uncle. Man had broke his leg and they set his leg in cement to fix it, cheaper, on the cheap, but when it healed up well, everybody assumed, but when they broke the cement cast off, they broke it with a hammer, ball peen hammer. and it re-broke his leg and a hip in about 2 or 3 different spots, maybe at least. So then he was really effed up. They had to set most of his lower body in the cement, except for where he could urinate out of. So, but after that, he healed up. He kind of had like this wobble in his hips, almost ironically like Elvis Presley. But anyhow, he had 3 or 4 children, and one of them was a boy. And the boy used to vomit on the bus all the time because the family didn't have a refrigerator. They only had a freezer. And he would eat ice cream, and the bus ride would shake and make him sick, and he would vomit up on the bus, doing bus vomit. And anyhow, one week I was coming home from church practice, and the dad was in the garage, and he was making his son a wooden shirt, a shirt out of wood. And I went over, and I didn't know what he was doing. You know, I thought he was building the fucking biggest birdhouse I've ever seen, you know? I'm thinking like, damn, this dude's trying to meet a pelican, you know? So I go over, and I see this activity going on, and I'm looking at him, and the dad, he's like, you want to help me out? And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, I'm making my boy a shirt, you know? And so I want to be helpful. You know, I'm a young man, but I'm fired up to try and be helpful. So I try and help, but I don't know how to make a shirt. But anyhow, I came back 2 days later, and that was Christmas time. I came back on Christmas, and I held the side of this when he nailed his son into the shirt, and he made his son a beautiful, I mean, pretty beautiful wooden shirt out of plywood. So it almost looked kind of camouflage, you know. Some people spray painted swastikas on it on the school bus as well. And nobody had anything against Jews. People had just seen that on pamphlets, you know, had seen the swastikas on pamphlets and stuff. And so somebody drew that, you know. We didn't even have any Jewish people in our area, even though my mother dated a Jewish man for a while. It was the first Jewish man I ever met, actually. This man, Zali was his name. Still one of the neatest names I've ever heard. But anyhow, that boy had that shirt for a while, and then some people stole it from him with crowbars and allegedly made a baby crib out of the wood. So that has kind of a sweet ending. But what I was answering there, sorry to go into that, but what I was answering was this gentleman's question here on the school bus. Let's go back to that story. I don't know how I got away from the school bus so far, but that was a strange kid that rode my bus, was that boy in the wooden shirt who used to do a lot of bus vomiting. But anyway, go on, Chase. Let's get back to you.
Every fucking day. And it started the very first day I ever picked him up. Well, he didn't skip a beat, you know, of course, smelling of weed. Steps right onto the bus. I'm a big fat dude. You got to understand this. And he looks right at me.
That's cool, man. I have some friends that are pretty fat or different types of sizes in their body. Go on. So you got the kid getting on the bus making fun of you a lot.
Oh, shit. It's Peter Griffin driving the bus. So that pretty much set the tone for the rest of that whole entire school year.
Wow, man. So that's so you got the kid getting on the bus, he's raising hell.
So I was calling to see, how would you deal with a situation like that? Or you just roll with the punches and enjoy getting zinged by a professional. So all right, man.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'll say this. If he's quick like that, you might not want to go at him, you know? Sometimes you just can't compete if somebody's zinging you. And sometimes you just need to not try and compete and just enjoy the fact that they're zinging you, bruh, you know? I mean, if he gets really mean with it, you could ask him, take him aside and be like, look, man, I think you're a funny dude. You know, respect that in him, because he probably takes a lot of pride in being funny. You know, it might be the only thing he has, you know? He might not be real smart. He might just be funny. Like, you know, when you're a funny kid, I think you take a lot of pride in that. But just ask him not to be mean. Say, look, you can make fun of whatever you want. Just, if he's really gripping at you, something that's really hurting your feelings or getting into your feelings, because you got to drive a bus, dude. You can't be getting bent out of shape because fucking, little Terry is zinging you. And next thing you know, you're fishtailing, 50 kids around. You got to keep it together. So yeah, that's what I would do, man. Just let him have his fun, dude. Laugh with him. If you think you got a good one, maybe go back at him. Maybe you could ask some of the other bus drivers what are some popular terms that they use to make fun of children. We had a man that drove us to school shirtless one time. This man named Milford, and he had a mixed boy. He had a boy that was mixed, but they tried to pretend like the boy was not mixed. So he had a boy that was half black, half white, a son, but they tried to pretend like the boy had two white parents, and I always thought that was interesting. And I also thought my vision was bad for a while because I would see him and be like, damn, my eyes aren't seeing colors correctly. I used to think that. But Chase, thanks for calling in there, dude. Sorry I went off on my own tangent. I'm at my wit's end right now, and I'm high on Claritin. I've been putting down some Claritin recently.
Hey, yo, what's going on, brother? My name's Jim. Got a little question inquiry here.
Okay, Jim.
The other night, I'm with my lady folk, and we're in not quite a 69 position, more like a 55, 57. I'm on all fours, going down on her, my butt, my junks, a little bit towards her face, and this is where the dilemma comes in. I'm, pleasing her, starting the car up a little bit. She's grabbing me on my stuff and grabbing me on my piece, and all of a sudden, I feel a little finger near my exit.
Yeah.
Now, we ain't never done this before. And she kept working it around and kind of felt good, and I didn't stop, and all of a sudden, I'm getting a little pleasure. Has this ever happened to you? And we didn't even talk about it. We just kind of changed positions and finished the business. I kind of liked it. Has this ever happened to you, brother? Love the podcast.
Okay, I think Jim was a fella's name there. And what I gathered there seems, he and his wife, or I think he said wife, were involved in some, sensual activities, and then she pleasured his buttocks, his butthole. If you want to say butthole, I guess let's just say it. She pleasured his butthole, touched his butthole. And that's an adult touching your butthole. It's legal. It's fine. He said they hadn't done that before, so that's new to them. So they're trying something new. I mean, that's always exciting. That's what life is. You got to get out there and try some new experiences. And he said that they didn't talk about it. Now, that's the part that's alarming to me, because if you don't discuss it, brother, let me tell you this, brother. If you don't discuss it, then it's this weird thing that's out there. But if next time you're sitting with your girl, maybe say, hey, the other night or day, whenever this occurred, we were being aggressive with each other's crotches and areas, and you took a swing at the dark arts with one of your digits, and I enjoyed it. Just let her know you enjoyed it some. Let her even show her on your finger how much you enjoyed, because that's crucial. You can enjoy a little, you can enjoy up to the knuckle, you can, who knows what you're going to end up in. But I think you got to bring that up. You got to discuss it. You got to keep the communication open, because that could open up a whole new world. That could open up a whole new world for you guys. Now, myself, have I ever been involved in any butt pleasures? I have not. I've touched my own butt a little bit. Maybe while I'm doing masturbation or something like that, and felt some joy there. I get a little bit nervous, because I'm not a doctor. and I feel I get a little bit nervous touching my own butthole if I'm not a doctor. But I've never had a woman pleasure me. Actually, you know what? I did have an ex-girlfriend that got pretty aggressive one night, now that I remember it. And she was almost violent about it, and that I didn't enjoy. And it it was nervous. I was nervous. She was I felt like she was looking for something, to be honest. I felt like she'd maybe, had left something in my ass. That's how she was behaving. And you know what? Actually, we didn't talk about it, but we were broken up, and it was the last minute thing. It was just like a last minute touching inside each other's butts. So that was, and I'm not going to call her now. I think she's engaged now or something.